Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Loop. I'm going to try to get the video folks. Oh, they're ready. All right. I will call this council workshop meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilor Newton. Here. Councilor Lube.
Here.
By phone. Councilor Anderson.
Here.
Mayor Snyder.
Here.
Council President Goodhouse.
Here.
All right, all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so I first want to acknowledge for the public that may be watching this later. I don't think we have any members of the public. Oh, we do have a member of the public in the room. We have two city councilors that are on the phone because they're not feeling great, and we're trying to maintain social distancing and be a good example. So you'll also notice that the room is set up with us sitting quite far apart. So it may look weird, but we're comfortable with it. And so I just want to acknowledge that if people are wondering why the room is set up the way it is and why two counselors are not physically present. Are there any non-agenda items, staff and council?
Mr. Mayor, the administration has council will have four non-agenda items to review. We're hoping that we can do that after your regular agenda for tonight. One relates to emergency provisions for, sorry, I'm blanking on
emergency declaration.
Yes.
Okay.
We also have consideration by the council of whether you would like to look at supporting the Washington County levies related to the library and public safety. And I'd like to close on non-agenda with a discussion for you all about meetings for the next month, council meetings for the next month, just so that you all have clarity about when you're going to meet. Those are the four agenda items we have.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. These items are considered routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Anyone may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Tonight we are going to be proclaiming April as Arbor Month, proclaiming April as Play Ball Month, proclaiming April 13th to 17th as Community Development Week, considering a resolution to appoint an alternate, Leah Voigt, to a voting member of the Budget Committee, and considering a resolution granting exemption from property taxes under TMC 3.50 for nonprofit low-income housing properties. Many of these items were on agendas later in the next couple weeks, but we're trying to do critical business now and without knowing exactly how the meeting schedule is going to go for the next few weeks to a month or more. So those are all the things we're considering. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, could I just
Newton.
could I just remind the public that item E, a resolution granting exemption from property taxes under TMC 350 for nonprofit low-income housing properties, is an item we do every year. So just because it's on consent, usually we do it in open session, but it's a fairly routine item. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. With that, is there a motion?
I move for the adoption of the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. I believe we had both Councilor Lube and Councilor Goodhouse vote yes. I think is that what you have? Okay. I may, as we're doing these phone things, I may be more specific about that because I can't necessarily even hear that. All right, let's move on to item number 3, consider a resolution declaring an emergency related to COVID-19. City Attorney Rahala.
Good evening, Council. The item before you tonight is a resolution declaring an emergency related to COVID-19 that ratifies the decision the mayor made yesterday morning to declare a local emergency in the city of Tigard. Section 4 goes through the specific actions that this emergency declaration will authorize. Section 4A is essentially any life, health, safety measure authorized by code or state law. Section B is a suspension of normal purchasing rules. The first part allows for emergency procurement without following the standard solicitation processes. It also includes a delegation, whereas normally contracts over $100,000 need to come to the local contract review board, city council for approval. This item delegates signature authority to the city manager. Staff will send out a weekly report to council of all contracts approved, but they will be approved by the city manager for the duration of the emergency. Section C temporarily waives all late fees and shutoff actions for utility accounts that accrue between the time of the mayor's declaration and continuing until the expiration of the emergency. Section D authorizes the city to institute emergency rules and guidance policies for the use of sick leave, telework, remote work, or other policies, personnel policies. And finally, Section E authorizes the city to relax or adjust enforcement of city codes, including but not limited to parking restrictions downtown. This declaration is effective until 12 p.m. on April 30th. If council needs to extend it, that would require an additional action. So this is slightly different than the declaration that the mayor made yesterday. We have added items as they have been raised. So council's adoption or ratification of this will be effective immediately. The mayor's declaration was still effective yesterday.
Just as a matter of process, let's say there's a miracle and we're done by tax day. Do we then, I mean, as just a matter of process, would we repeal it at that time, or what do we do? Or do we conclude the emergency as ended?
Yes, I would recommend, so Tigard's municipal code authorizes the emergency declaration to last only for the duration of the emergency. So if there was some miracle, we would want to have council repeal or terminate this emergency resolution prior to April 30th.
Okay. Or otherwise we may be finding ourselves extending it, or?
Correct.
Okay. Other questions? Councilor Newton.
Yeah, Section B on contracting, it says all contracts, so I'm assuming we mean all contracts. And
all contracts.
That's due to the fact that we don't want to have to bring council into a meeting to approve contracts
Exactly.
while we're going through this.
Yes,
Okay.
so we're expecting several contracts with the busy construction season
Right.
coming up. We're expecting several contracts. So we don't want to have a council meeting to authorize every contract.
Okay, as we typically would.
Exactly.
Okay.
Other questions? Councilor Anderson? Councilor Lube, Council President Goodhouse, any questions or comments?
No, you asked my question. I had, and this was ended earlier.
I could not make that out. Could you make that out?
I said that you answered my question. It ended earlier.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 20-14.
I second the motion.
City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution 20-14, a resolution of the City of Tigard declaring an emergency related to COVID-19.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. We will move on to item number 4, receive capital improvement plan update. City Engineer, good to see you.
Let's see, am I up, Carol? Oh, evening, Mayor and Council. Bit of a strange environment to be giving an update about the capital improvement plan, but a couple things I want to note. One is, and I talked to our project managers, our engineering project managers this week about this, is that it's a crucial responsibility we have to continue to implement our capital improvement program. We're not only putting projects in place that are for quality of life, we're also putting projects in place that put out contracts to the construction community, to the consultant community. We do things that are an important cog in the economy, and so we're doing all we can to make sure that we can continue to deliver projects, even though we're having to look at some different ways we do our work right now. So I just wanted to point that out, and I'm happy to talk more about that. I'd also like to say thank you for the trust that you just exhibited by approving that resolution that includes the city manager being able to approve contracts. We are moving right now into the construction season, and we have a lot of contracts to push through, and normally we have a process where you look at and review all of those, and so we understand the responsibility we have to make sure that we're continuing to put contracts together and manage projects in a very responsible way, managing the city's resources responsibly. With that, let's see, I'll note that I sent out last Thursday, there was a whole bunch of pages in the council packet that was the regular project updates for all of our capital improvement projects. For those who like to look at them in detail, we put those together every couple of months. Also, the packet for this meeting included, in addition to the PowerPoint that I'm going to show, it included some maps of the Fanno Creek Trail. Those don't show well on PowerPoint, so that's why those were sent out separately. But we'll talk more about that project in just a minute. So I'll kind of quickly go through, as I usually do, through each of the types of projects that we're delivering. We have, I think it's 45 projects currently that we're actively working on delivering. It's a lot of work, and they relate to parks, streets, water, sanitary, storm, and buildings as well. And I'll just pick and choose some of these to talk about, but please stop me and ask any questions. As normal, under budget and schedule, have kind of a green light, yellow light, red light type approach. Green meaning everything's going along just fine. Yellow means there's some slight problem, but things are moving. And red means there's a substantial issue to deal with. So before I get to the red light, let's see, I want to note about the Tigard Street Heritage Trail. Hopefully folks have seen the restroom out there now, and that things are pretty much at substantial completion, except for some of the newer artwork that will still be coming. And the rotary clock is still coming as well. But we are substantially complete on that. I guess we'll have to see how we manage to celebrate the completion of that project. But
yeah, the completion of that project, or the celebration of that, seems to, it's getting hard to do that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been on multiple impacts to that.
Yeah, that's sad. But at some point we will all be enjoying it. The Fanno Creek Trail project, I am going to go into a little bit more detail at the end. There's definitely some budget stuff to talk about there, as well as a few pretty pictures to show. And I'll also mention at that time the Fanno Creek Trail amenities. Let's see. Parks major maintenance, I think a couple of key things there. One is you'll finally see that one of the contracting items we'll have coming up in the next month or so is to pave that parking lot for the Poxo Dog Park, which is, these are kind of smaller items under Parks Major Maintenance, but they're things that are very near and dear to a lot of folks. Let's see. This is also going to, once we get some good weather again, there's a part of that flooding problem along the Fanno Creek Trail up by Shoals Ferry. This money will help pay for rerouting some of that trail. Parks Master Plan project is a little slow getting kicked off, but it is going. We're working on getting public in, and we had to change that over to other staff. Universal Plaza, you'll see currently demolition is planned for the Ferguson building this spring, so that'll be coming. Fanno Creek Trail alignment study, there's a reason why that is the last segment to try to plan and design and build. That's the section from Bonita to Durham Road, and it is really complicated to figure out where that trail can fit in to that corridor with the way the stream wiggles around and the wetlands and buildings close in different places, and how do you cross Durham Road? But we are diligently working on a whole bunch of potential alternatives, none of them perfect. So it'll be fun to see how we find we can draw the line on the map for that one and then go after some funding to build that last segment. Pavement management program. We will be paving the rest of Durham Road, hopefully all the way up to 72nd. Our only issue right now is working out details with ODOT for the intersection of Hall Boulevard and Durham Road. And when you start working in state highway right-of-way, you start triggering things like archaeological requirements and things like that. So we're trying to figure out how we can get that done or leave a little place and get the rest of it done. You'll also see slurry seal happening this year. It'll be the Summerfield area. Actually, Summerfield Plus, I'll call it, but that entire area. And we're working to get ahead on the curb ramps that would be for the next year's overlay project. So we're working to put a curb ramp contract out that will include those along 121st and get that concrete work done first and then follow later with the asphalt work next year. Let's see. I know council was hoping to have that meeting out at Summerfield, and I'm sure there would have been a lot of interest in that as well, but we will get notices out to everybody. I just want to skip over the Upper Boones Ferry Durham Signal project because every time I'm wrong on that one.
But there's archaeological concerns with organizing and coordinating the lighting, the signals?
Because this project will likely require replacing a couple of curb ramps or a couple of buttons.
That's triggering archaeological.
Yes, because it's federal funding. So once again, yet one more reason to slow that project down. So I'm not even going to guess this time on what the schedule is on this project because I've been wrong every time. But we keep pushing on it. Roy Rogers Road is well underway. You've probably all seen that. 121st. Well, let's see. So we managed to squeeze in an open house, and that's going well. We had about 30 people attend that, and mostly all positive comments. Most of the neighbors are very excited to have the widening for the bike lanes and the sidewalk moving ahead on that. Let's see. Tegan Enlow from our staff came and talked to you about the 72nd Avenue study, and we're moving forward on getting that codified. North Dakota Bridge, the consultant has been selected and the fees are being negotiated, and I'm happy to say on this project ODOT is moving faster than they have on other projects, so I'm very happy about that. We will endeavor to work with ODOT on trying to figure out the dance of construction schedules between the Highway 217 widening that will close Hall Boulevard for like 7 or 8 months and the closure of North Dakota Bridge, and then after that Tigard Street Bridge to replace them, and we don't want all those things to be happening at the same time. ODOT's been a little bit iffy on their schedule on Highway 217 because that project, they're having budget trouble, but we're working with them on that. Wall Street Tech Center Drive, the second part of that, which will connect it from the Wall Street we've built up to the Tech Center Drive connection with 72nd. That's almost ready to go out to bid, and that would be under construction shortly. And that will also include a signal up at 72nd. Transportation System Plan Update, there will, the request for proposals is being put together by Community Development, and that'll be issued shortly. Main Street Phase 2, that's another one we're gonna have to figure out in the short term how to conduct the public input, but we're gathering a lot of information about that. Design process is underway, and so far feeling good about that project. Other than potentially we may see some higher costs, and you will see the expectation of that show up in the proposed budget documents. And Highway 99W lights is one our staff came to for that to get the IGA approved. We were able to defederalize that. So it's more work for us, but it isn't run through ODOT. And I think we'll be able to get more done for the money.
We like that.
We like that. Water projects. One of our next items is to get a request for proposals out for an owner's representative. That will help us be able to deliver this substantial project. It's a nearly $25 million project to construct the reservoir, pump station, and pipelines that are required. And this will provide the necessary fire flow for River Terrace, for our urban expansion area. This is such a large project, we need help and alternative project delivery, and I anticipate we'll be back to you with the evaluation that needs to happen to look at alternative types of project delivery. So instead of the traditional design bid build, we might be looking at something called progressive design build, where you basically are bringing the construction team in earlier to participate in the design of the project, and you can often get things delivered not necessarily less expensively, but more efficiently, and it can help us actually get it done and deal with not having to hire a whole bunch of staff to be able to deliver it. We'll also be looking at that type.
Ms. Feha, I have a question really quick.
Yep.
You noted that this was to deliver fire flows to River Terrace to the, do you mean the new area that we're, the South River Terrace, or just River Terrace? Okay.
No, this is for the existing River Terrace. So the Water Master Planning Project is looking at what additional needs we may have related to further urban growth expansion to the west and to the south. And potentially that could require another reservoir.
Right now, there's adequate pressure in River Terrace, but it's not built out, right? I mean, that's
River Terrace is not built out, and fire flow is a funny thing. It's not the, like, you can turn your tap on and you feel like you have enough pressure. It's the risk situation of, you know, let's say you had a fire, or a fire and also a drought situation. Is there enough capacity in the system to deliver the water needed? And there's not a hard and fast line about exactly how much you need, but we are definitely at that point where we need to get this reservoir built. Let's see, I mentioned the Water Master Plan. The Fanno Street 121st Avenue valve and piping improvements is also related to being able to deliver water over to River Terrace all the way from, because it's coming from Lake Oswego. And that's being done in coordination with the 121st Avenue project. It'll be built at the same time. Aquifer storage and recovery, I think I've mentioned that one before, but we need to get our wells rehabilitated and up and running properly, because that's really our backup source. So if we have a drought condition or we're regulated off the Clackamas River, that storage of water underground is what we need to be able to access, and our equipment is old and not entirely functioning properly. So we have a consultant where we've just been negotiating the contract with them, and we'll be getting that going so we can construct over the next winter. And Greenfield, as you know, is an emergency repair. I wasn't really sure what to put for colors for budget and schedule for that one because it was the thing that popped up out of nowhere. And I will say the design is complete and that one is out to bid, and so we're working to try to get that street reopened as quickly as possible, hopefully before the end of the fiscal year. Sanitary sewer projects. Let's see. East Fort Dairydale Creek is actually a stream restoration project, but it's being done because we have exposed sewer line in the creek, and we don't want it to break and spill sewage in the creek. So that's why it's listed in the sanitary sewer projects. That work will get constructed this summer. It's ready to go. The siphon repair. So that's where we have a pipe that's exposed crossing Fanno Creek. And that one, luckily, we've been having to sit on it because we had difficulty with easement acquisition, but now we were able to make that happen, and we're this close to making that happen so that we can actually get that project built and not have a scary pipe hanging out over the creek. Downtown sanitary sewer line. This is one of a series of projects we've been doing because we have older sanitary sewer lines that inspections, video inspections tell us the pipes are getting thinner and thinner because we've had to clean them so much, particularly ones that were in. Also, Clean Water Services has been, in recent past, implementing a much more rigorous FOG program to try to eliminate those problems in the future. Sanitary sewer master plan shows as red on schedule because we've made the decision to hold off on updating our plan, even though it's pretty old, because we're going to be implementing a new asset management system. And our current asset management system doesn't have the reporting capability we could use to be able to produce analytics on which pipes are in which condition and what age in which parts of the city, so we could put together a more programmatic way to attack our aging infrastructure. So we'd rather wait to get the new asset management system in place over the next year and then more effectively do the master plan update. Stormwater projects. Because you approved an increase to the stormwater rate, which will go into effect in July, we are able to start adding more projects. I just wanted to note that. That isn't really what this list is about so much, but you'll start seeing them in the budget that will be coming before you.
Just to be clear, those are projects that need to be done. We're not just making them up.
Yes, those are projects that
They just have been unfunded and therefore undone.
Yes, there's a long list of, projects that have been on the waiting list that are, some of them are pretty scary in terms of what infrastructure they could impact if the streams keep eroding. I think an interesting project I'll put out to you is 124th and Ann. So if you're ever driving 124th near Mary Woodard School, and you go up 124th and cross the creek right by Ann Court, just for fun, this is a nerdy thing, but you can see that we added a section of sidewalk when we replaced the culvert, but we replaced a sidewalk on one side and we added new sidewalk on the other side. One side is regular concrete, the other side is porous concrete. So if you want to see the difference between the two products, one which sheds rainwater, the other one lets the rainwater infiltrate through, and we don't have to build stormwater facilities, you can drive there and see the difference between the two sidewalks. So I think that's really cool.
Can you show us pictures?
You know, I may have, maybe I've said this already, darn.
And it was cool.
I think it's probably enough on stormwater. Other projects were, because you adopted the Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan, we are now having internal meetings to work towards our implementation plan for that, and that includes we're working with our consultant to bring in some training for staff about all types of ADA topics. We have a great need to understand better, to understand how to design things better, to understand better how to accommodate people better, and so we're working on that. Public Works Facility, on February 18th, per your direction, we're moving forward with site options discovery and a, you know, in yellow, quick schedule, 3-year schedule to try to implement a new public works facility. That's a tight timeline. That's another one you'll likely see us come back to talk about some sort of alternative project delivery once we find a site. The reason why the schedule is listed as yellow isn't because the project is slow, it's because it's speeding up. And I didn't have another color for speeding up.
It also sounds like it's aggressive.
It's an aggressive schedule.
Being able to deliver on schedule.
Yes.
From the get-go.
Yes. So, show you a couple of pretty pictures and then talk just a little bit about the Fanno Creek Trail. So, actually it looks better now, but these are some pictures when the restroom was going in. So, pretty excited about that. This is a 2-stall facility. Okay, let's talk about the Fanno Creek Trail. So first we'll look at pretty pictures, then we'll talk about dollars. So like I mentioned in the packet, there were some maps that showed the 4 segments of trail that are being designed under this project. It has funding from, has federal funding, what's called RFFA funding, and it's related to air quality improvements because we'll create a trail that hopefully will get people out of their cars and improve air quality. I just wanted to show a couple of pictures here that would work well on PowerPoint. So here's Grant Avenue now, where you have on the right side of the picture is where the trail comes in from downtown and connects to Grant. And on the left side is where the trail will continue kind of to the north through Woodard Park. And then here's a graphic of what that will likely look like. So you can see improved crosswalk, and then there will actually be a bridged structure to take you down to grade because you're kind of up above the floodplain there. And then here's from the other end of Woodard Park, from the north end, this is where the trail basically ends now, and you can turn to the right and kind of go over towards Johnson Street and go into the neighborhood there. And this is what that would look like, where the trail would continue, the main trail, Fanno Creek Trail, would continue straight ahead, and you'd kind of have this location of maybe a little plaza where you'd have all these connections coming together into the, oops.
This is like a human roundabout.
Yes, you could circle it if you, yes.
Or a human intersection, whatever it is.
Yes, exactly, human and bicycle. So let me talk just a little bit more about this project. So again, as I mentioned, there's 4 segments. So we just saw some pictures related to the Woodard Park segment. In addition to that, there's what I call the City Hall segment, which is behind us, which isn't, there's already a trail out there, but this would be improving that existing trail. If you ever walk it, it's got a really rough surface now, very narrow, so we'd be doing some improvements on that. And then behind the library, adding that whole section that goes across the property that's owned jointly by Metro and the city and down to Milton Court, and then a segment that goes from the Durham Wastewater Treatment Plant down to the Keokuk's Bridge at the Tualatin River. This is one of those federal grants where we're not a certified agency. I can talk about that if you like. But so with this sort of money, ODOT has to deliver the project. So they hire the consultant, they hire the contractors, they set the process. We still do just as much work, if not more, because we're still running our public process. We're still doing a lot of the day-to-day work with the consultant during the design of the project and those types of things. Because it's ODOT-led, I will say, and this one in particular has been a very slow one. That's why I was glad to say that it seems like the North Dakota Street Bridge is being delivered quicker. This one has taken forever. It's taken about 5 years, and I'll mention just even part of it. From the point of the consultant elected until that consultant for design being given notice to proceed, which normally in our process, you know, you're negotiating the price and then taking it for approval. Normally that would be 2 or 3 months for us. That took 18 months. So there's been a time lapse that's been a problem. The other thing, and that impacts cost, right? Time means cost, both in terms of just you're spending more time on it, but also because costs increase over time, you have the inflation factor. In addition to that, when the city originally went after this project for the grant with Metro, it was conceived as like an 8 to 10 foot wide trail. After the grant was awarded for that scope of a project, the Federal Highway Administration came in, because this is money coming from them, and said, no, this is a transportation project and it needs to meet our federal guidelines, which meant it needed to be at least a 12-foot wide trail plus shoulders and 14-foot wide for structures like bridges. And I remember going into that meeting and arguing about that and saying, we want this project to go from point A to point B. We don't want to end up somewhere in the middle and put up a barricade and say, sorry, we ran out of money. The only point we kind of won was the federal folks wanted to have it be 12-foot plus wide, and we got them to agree to 12 feet. Because of that's a significant increase in scope. That's a significant increase in pavement and bridge section and all of that we're putting in. Metro and ODOT tried to find a little bit more money to backfill it, and that's why you may recall the money swapping that was done in regards to Main Street, where we had some federal funds for that. A little over half of that money ended up going to this project. The other half went to TriMet, which they sent back to us in terms of local dollars, so we at least could defederalize Main Street, but we had less money for Main Street. So we got some more money for this, but given the time, given the width increase, we're having significant budget problems at this point. When we got to 30%...
So the gap is 1.5 million?
It's actually more like 2 million. So I now have updated information after a meeting today. So I'm prepared to talk about how we would deal with that. But yeah, it's a lot more money. So just to get to that point, at 30% design, we could see that the costs were going way up. And so we did what I would call a value engineering exercise at that point in time. We made some significant scope changes. At that point, we hoped we were close to staying within the budget, but as time has progressed and the design has progressed, and as they've looked more at constructability issues out in the middle of a natural area, trying to bring equipment in, how do you do that? How do you put in, do you have to make the base of the trail thicker so that you can bring all the equipment and the materials in, or some other way? All those things have transpired, plus just time and inflation. So that now we're at 90%. Now we have an engineer's estimate at this point in time. And it's, we were talking today about our needs, and it's a $1.8 million need. So that $1.8 million does include some contingency. It includes about a 20% contingency for construction. That's not a massive contingency, but it's a reasonable one. The project is aimed to be bid in December, and so at that time we would also know, how those bids come in. The way the intergovernmental agreement works with ODOT, if the low bid comes in within 10% of the engineer's estimate, they will go ahead and automatically award it. So we know we have to at least have 10% contingency. This $1.8 million includes 20% contingency. So the first things we did when we saw this is, is there any ways to cut this down? We knew we'd already done value engineering on this. We have a parallel project called the Fanno Creek Trail Amenities, which the federally funded project can't include some of the nice things that we would like to see along the trail, like interpretive signage and some nature play elements and things like that. So we've been carrying a parallel project. We could decide not to do that. We don't want to do that, but I'm going through the list of things we could do to reduce. That was like a $600,000 savings or delay in savings. The other thing we looked at was the potential to save $800,000 to $900,000 by not, at this point in time, building the southernmost segment of the trail from the treatment plant down to the river. So we thought, if we don't build one segment at that time, what would be the one that would make the most sense not to build? It made the most sense to us to continue the trail south, continuously, ended at Bonita, maybe build that other one later when we find money to build that gap section between Bonita and Durham. However, we've talked to Metro staff about this. Metro would have to approve changing the scope of the project because they were the ones who picked this for grant funding. This grant funding, as I mentioned, was based on air quality improvements. So as we've talked to Metro, they said, well, we can't just say yes or no. We would have to rerun our air quality modeling and see if the project would still give substantial benefit. And rerunning their air quality model and going through that analysis would take at least 6 months. If we delay, if we just sit and wait 6 months, our problem is, and this is what ODOT has told us, the federal grant money is on a certain timeline. We could lose the federal grant money because we'd go past the date that money is available. That money is only available through the next federal fiscal year.
So how much of the money, how much of the overrun is due to the construction width, the construction width? I mean, let me state why I'm asking that. Let me be more specific. There are a lot of things that some people will criticize the current presidential administration for, but one thing that they love to talk about and did while I was in Washington, D.C. in January is how many regulations and in their opinion, stupid things that the federal government requires people to do that then they've been able to stop. And they've actually challenged mayors to bring those things to them. I guess my question to you is a couple-fold. One is do we the way you presented this, we don't even want it 12 feet wide. Am I right about that or not?
No, I won't say that.
You won't say that, okay.
No, so I can explain that.
Okay, because that's what the sense I got. So I was kind of going to well, if we don't even want it that wide, then, and we're being told it has to be, that immediately to me, if that's causing budget problems, is like, this is potentially something we can push on. But it sounds like we do want it that wide, we just can't afford it that wide.
Right, so there's a balance here. We're building a transportation facility in the middle of a natural area. And when we originally put the application together, we were working with folks at Metro who are kind of the natural resources side of Metro, not the transportation side of Metro. Natural resources folks want us to have as limited of an impact as possible. And that's a great goal. On the other hand, you have if you go out on the trail now, you go out on some of these narrow segments now, and we have thousands of users every year out on these trail segments. The 8-foot segments that we have now feel very narrow when you have bicyclists going both ways, when you have pedestrians, when you have people with children. So I would say, given the significance of this trail and the amount of usage it receives and will receive in the future, 12 feet is not a bad number for width. It's just the problem was we didn't start out with that number and the grant wasn't based on that number. And we weren't given a whole bunch more grant money when when FHWA came in and said, no, but you have to build it to this width.
Okay. Can you at least tell us how much of that $1.8 million delta is due to the difference in width, just so we have some sense of that?
Well, what I can say, I can't give you a number tonight, but what I can say is that if you think about going from 10 feet to 12 feet or 8 feet to 12 feet, you're talking about easily a 20 to 30% increase in material and an increase in cost. So that alone is definitely.
So you'd ballpark it
at a lot of this.
Maybe 30%.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Council President Goodhouse.
Is this also an example of where we got grant money, but then as far as going to have a jump off vehicles? situation, and we don't have as much money where to fix it quicker, and have the money go straight to us for the project, then we would be in a better situation.
Council President Goodhouse, I don't think anyone in the room could make out what you were saying, unfortunately.
Is it better if I talk further away?
Yes.
Okay, I'm a little further away. Is this an example of if the money came to us and we'd have to go through all the hoops of the federal government and we can build the project right away? Is this a situation where inflation's caused these problems as well and time going by?
About delay.
Yeah, I mean, his question is, let me try to restate it. If the money was coming directly to Tigard and there wasn't all this delay and there wasn't then therefore all this inflation, is this an example of one where if we'd just been able to do it, we'd have it done and it would have been done the way we wanted it?
Yes, I believe so. I think that's definitely an issue we had, because I would guess without the delays and without some of the extra federal process we have to go through, we probably could have had it built at least 2 years ago. We've seen substantial construction cost increases in that time. We're working on determining alternative ways to get it. Would have been a lot better condition on the master plan. Project manager Steve.
We can cut some of the red tape and have the money go directly to the cities. This is a perfect example where money is allocated, but then after all the regulations and time, then we can't do the same project or we lose the money.
So you're going to use this as an example of that?
Yeah, I'll use this one as an example.
Okay. All right. Other questions or comments on this one?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, City Engineer, are you asking us what direction we would take tonight?
No,
or just giving us a heads
this is
up?
a heads up tonight. What I will say is, based on we had a big internal discussion today about this, and we looked at how important is this project to us, and we all agree this is a very important project. This is a huge regional significance, let alone local significance. We think it's in our best interest to try to get it built now. It's only probably going to get more expensive, and we'd like to see the project go ahead and find a way, if we can, to go ahead and build it. And so our finance director looked at fund balances in transportation system development charges and park systems development charges. He believes that enough is available to be able to fund the overage on this project without affecting the capital improvement program as proposed that you will see for FY21. So based on that, you'll see in the proposed budget documents coming to you and a $1.8 million increase in this project budget as proposed in the city funding.
And does that include getting it all of those segments done?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess what I would say is, I know a lot of people in our community support the Fanno Creek Trail and are excited about it going all the way. I think they'd be less enthused if it didn't. And I've had several people tell me, 5 or 6, that they continue to vote for Metro bonds with the idea in mind that we will get this trail. I guess the question would be then, maybe you don't have an answer tonight, if we needed to and we didn't fund the amenities right now, we talked about that being a separate project and it was like $600,000. What would that be difficult to do later if it came to that?
Or more expensive?
Or more expensive, or
So what we talked about today was, the $600,000 for the amenities probably wouldn't pay for all of the amenities we'd like to see, but it would pay for designing and implementing some of them, and we'd have kind of a master plan for the rest that we could maybe find things like Metro Parks Bond money for. But what I'm proposing in regards to that is that $600,000, we keep it in the budget, but we wait until December when the trail project is bid, and we see how that comes in, and based on that decide whether or not to move ahead with designing and implementing some of those amenities, or whether we need that as contingency for this project.
Other comments or questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It'll be exciting
Actually,
when it's done.
I will make one other comment about the Shoals Ferry undercrossing. You know, it has, and I continue to get, you know, there's the group of people that monitor it and report directly to me how it's going from the community, and it has been quite dry pretty much all winter, with the exceptions of the high flow times when you would expect it to be. So,
Wow.
you know, I think that's interesting given the work that was done last summer, and I just wanted to share that. I know that maybe doesn't fit right in this capital improvement discussion, but just so you know, there's a lot of community members that are very happy about that.
Well, that's helpful. I think that attests to Clean Water Services keeping an eye on the beaver management.
Yes.
That project is progressing where we have a recommendation for an at-grade crossing of Shoals Ferry Road with what would be a hawk signal. So that would be an actual signal, push button, but a signal.
Like goes to red, kind of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We didn't, on Shoals Ferry Road, it'd be too dangerous to just do like the flashing RFFA lights. So we were going to have a public meeting coming up in the next few weeks. That's
what
not
happened
going
to
to happen.
Okay.
But that is progressing, so we'll have something that we can, hopefully, Metro saw that as a high priority, and so we're hoping to get Parks Bond funding for that at-grade crossing.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is a briefing on City Council goals. City Manager Wine.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, I have the benefit of making my report on the same night that our city engineer is doing this quarterly CIP report. So some of the projects that you just heard about that we've been making progress on. So thank you very much. Tonight I'll try to make my report fairly brief. As you recall, I gave you an update back in September focused on the first and second quarters of 2019, and then in December on the third and fourth quarters. We've had lots of progress and success. So this presentation is going to be a little bit different than the last two, and the report is going to continue to evolve quarterly, giving you an update about our council goals. In addition to the progress on our council goals, I'm going to be folding in the accomplishments of our departmental work plans, which are in progress. And you'll remember when we did the performance audit in 2019, one of the recommendations from that performance audit is that every department go through a process of coming up with work plans. So this format is going to be continuing to evolve. This is just a reminder of some of the milestones of how we're shaping the 2 years that you're all serving together. You made a point when you put together your council goals of aligning your goals with the city's strategic plan, and that's our 20-year roadmap. So our performance audit last year, you're going to be hearing me talk about the performance audit and the work plans tonight, and also I'll be alluding to the refresh of the strategic plan, and you're going to be seeing more about that over the next few months or so. The performance audit said that all three things should align, the department work plans, the council goals, and our citywide strategic plan. So we're now at a point, and as I was getting this quarterly report ready for you, we're now at a point where rather than reporting all of those things separately, I'm going to be putting a report together for you quarterly where you're going to be seeing an update on your goals, and then I'll be introducing the idea of the department work plans. And I just have an example of that for you tonight, but the next time you see this, you'll be seeing a broader report, and the council goals will be part of it. So department work plans will be something that you'll start to get to see, and it's at a little bit greater detail than the level that I'm reporting here. I think I've already said most of this. A reminder that we have been working on updating the city's, refreshing the strategic plan for the city over the past year. We're taking a look at what we've achieved, how the vision and goals need to change for the next 5 years. I mentioned the performance 69 recommendations. The work plans by department were something that our office, the city manager's office, is supposed to take over, and we are, this is not something our departments have done before. They do work planning on their own at the departmental level, but we've not ever come up with a unified format and approach to doing work plans. So we're trying to come up with a structure that works, and as you can imagine, because our lines of business across the city are so different, those work plans are, they're evolving. I'll just put it that way. And what we did, I think maybe it's probably fine to go to the next slide. Yes, so what I did in putting together department work plans and working with every department, the leadership team worked together, and as we are creating work plans, what I asked them to include are goals that are related to the strategic plan, and those would be the existing goals and as they're evolving, and I'll give you a little preview tonight of where the updated or the refreshed vision for the strategic plan is going, and also the way the goals might look also. So in each departmental work plan, if there's a goal related to the strategic plan, if there's a city council goal, if there are major projects and initiatives such as the 45 projects that you just saw from the city engineer and the CIP, and the 69 performance audit recommendations, those all make up what will be in department work plans. So as you can probably imagine, this has been a pretty big undertaking, and I brought you some of what, just an example of what that framework would look like, and I'll hit that at the end of my presentation. So this is your tiny reveal of where we're headed with the refreshed strategic plan. I mentioned the process that we've been through. Since 2014, when we first embarked on strategic planning for the city, and we tried out with the community a very ambitious vision and 4 goals about becoming the most walkable city in the Pacific Northwest, where people of all ages and abilities enjoy healthy and interconnected lives. We have now been on that path for 5 years, and the process of refreshing the strategic plan is really meant to say, what's working for us about that vision? What did we accomplish? What do the next 5 years look like? We're also going to be, so what we're going to be doing is through a whole process of internal dialogue, because I think we have some goals in updating, refreshing the strategic plan, and one is to create buy-in at the community level, create buy-in at the internal level about our strategic plan and how to get it done, and also to create tangible accomplishments of success so that we know we can point back 5 years from now and say, here's what we said we would do, and that's what we're accomplishing. So I'm giving you a preview tonight of where an updated strategic plan vision is going to go. The ideas in the current, I'd say again, very ambitious vision that we've got in the current strategic plan are going to be shifting a little bit from healthy, interconnected, and walkable, still equitable, walkable, and healthy, and accessible and the idea of accessible for everyone are the concepts that are in the evolving vision for the refreshed strategic plan.
Councilor Newton.
Yeah, really quick, you know me and my interconnected stuff, my connection, communication. I really feel like we've made real headway in that, and we stand out from other communities because of our community connections and the work we did there. And I'm a little nervous that that's not reflected there. Yep. So that's just one comment.
The word interconnected specifically?
Yeah, the connection, the community kind of connection.
Was that left out on purpose?
Yeah.
We've had a really interesting set of conversations about the concepts in the vision, and to answer your question directly, well, actually you'll see in the way we're going to be working with our work plans, the concepts that we're working with. The word connected and interconnected has a lot of resonance for some folks because of the many different things that it means. It could mean social connections, it could be technological connections, it could be physical connections, like in becoming more walkable. I think the idea was that the reason the vision doesn't include it, but it will probably be included in a goal, is that we're trying to go beyond it with a concept that's more about inclusion and less of an umbrella term that has connected in it. But as I mentioned, coming up in the spring and the summer, we're going to be out asking the community and engaging with you to hear more about what the current vision and goals mean to you and what it should be. So
So we'll have input.
This isn't set in stone.
This is the beginning.
I just wanted to make that comment because
I appreciate that. And I would say too, your leadership team has had actually, and we have a guidance team made up of folks from every department in the city and have had extensive discussions about conceptually what the vision should be saying in terms of, if they're in large part, the strategic plan we know best because of what the vision says, not because of something that's in an objective or a goal. What are the things that need to stand out about what our direction of change will be for the future? And this is where we've landed for the moment, but we have more input to get. So I wanted to just give you a preview of it, and I'm hoping we'll have more conversation about it. And then below the idea of the vision will be, right now we have 4 goals that are sort of nested under the vision. And I mentioned that we're trying to be sure that we are measuring our success in the future with an updated plan. So strategic plan refresh, still in process, but we are trying to land the set of concepts for the vision and goals, and we'll be getting feedback about them soon. Because the strategic plan is going to play prominently in the work plans, and also your council goals align with them, that's part of the reason I'm mentioning this. And as the vision has been evolving, the department work plans all at the moment are connected to one of these 8 concepts. So as you'll note, Councilor Newton, to your point, the idea of connected is still in there, and because there are projects and work that the departments are doing to carry out that idea from all of those perspectives, the concept still lives there. It's just not stated in the vision. I think that's good. It's going to be, now that we have a strategic plan, how it will grow and how folks relate to it is going to be, I think, a point of lots of discussion.
What does healthy systems mean?
Healthy systems include, well, originally the idea of healthy, one of the bits of feedback that we've had over the past year, thinking about the way we'll refresh the strategic plan, in our workforce, we have some folks who do work who, when they read or hear the vision, say to themselves, I don't see myself, I don't see my work, I don't understand how my work relates to this vision. And the idea of healthy systems has to do with our infrastructure and about the water that we deliver to customers and the maintenance that we need to do on all of our physical systems, and also what that delivers to the community. So that's a concept that, in talking to our employees who said, you know, there are a bunch of us who work on the delivery systems and delivering clean water and sanitary sewer services, that was meant to represent some of the work that they do. And it's helpful to hear just even your initial feedback about wanting to know what these words mean.
The first comment I'll make is that I know what both of those words mean, and I know quite a bit about the city operations, and I could not tell you what it meant just reading it. So that's probably a little bit of just feedback right off the bat. But it sounds like you're really talking to me. What I'm hearing is it's about like resilient and effective systems.
Yes, and I would say too that in talking with our workforce and surveying and having conversations with them, the word interconnected had a similar kind of a question, which was there are folks who identify, just same with the word walkable. There are folks who are doing work in the city who identify strongly with what that is about, and there are some who don't. And our employees are not the only stakeholder group who needs to have the strategic plan resonate, but it's a place where we started to try to figure out where we should shift. So I appreciate the feedback. Oh, that's kind of the theme of what you're hearing in my presentation also, is that in the Department of Developing Work Plans, and also as we are refreshing the strategic plan, we're headed in a couple of directions, and we're trying to make a start. So now you're going to see part of the presentation that you've seen before, and I'm going to give you an update about what we know in the last quarter that we've achieved on the council goals. So this is really more along the lines of the report you've seen prior, and next time you see a report, we will be folding the council goals into the department work plans, and you'll be able to see all of it. So I'm just going to go through your 5 council goals, and this is just a reminder of what's in the goal. First council goal is really all about the local option levy and the intent that you stated at the beginning of last year to seek a local option levy and communicate clearly about it, and using data to explain our strategies and our next steps and how we're doing. So in the last quarter, we've done a lot to bring the message of the need for the levy and the services it provides in 2019. As you all know, because you've been part of this process throughout, the levy was referred in late January, so here it is, and it's before voters. And we went through some work in the late fall and winter, or I guess we're still in the winter, on refining the levy amount and going through the survey results. Other accomplishments in the last quarter, including the publishing the popular annual financial report. You received an update from us last month about facilities planning, and I think you're aware that we are going to be applying for a COPS hiring grant. So we'll be talking about hiring for police generally during the budget process as well. As we look ahead to the next quarter, we'll pivot on the outcome of the levy election. In this goal also includes updating the citywide report card, and you're going to be looking at updates to utility rates later in the year. In Goal 2, this is where all the major projects that live in our centers reside, and so there's a long list here of the projects that we have underway in the Triangle, in downtown, Southwest Corridor, and Washington Square. Over the last quarter, you heard about almost all of this in the last presentation from City Engineer Fea. And you've been part of decisions to award contracts for Universal Plaza and Main Street Phase 2. So those projects are going to continue to get underway and be under construction in the quarter ahead. We have Transportation System Plan, which is launching. You just heard about that also. There's a project called City Center Futures, which is really about redoing our downtown and transit-oriented development vision, and the Urban Renewal Plan update. So, and our Washington Square Regional Plan is really going to get underway. As the city engineer alluded to in this moment that we're in, our public outreach plans and our public meetings that we have been planning to get input, we're trying to rethink them, at least for the very near term, about how to be creative about getting input on projects. Let's see, the third goal, ensuring Tigard grows and develops in a smart and inclusive way. This goal is really about the potential expansion of the city to the west, affordable housing, and the River Terrace projects. In the last quarter, you were part of the decision to approve an IGA for the concept planning project, and as that project will be underway very soon with a request for proposals for the consultant and the team who will do the work, market analysis, and putting together an advisory committee. You've already gotten briefings about construction excise tax, which you've put in place, and applying to be a joint entitlement city for CDBG. So that'll be coming up in the next quarter. In council goal number 4, on the face of this looks like a goal about communication, and it also includes outreach and engagement and building relationships and partnerships. So the majority of our accomplishments in the last quarter, you had a conversation with our staff about your aims in the goal about having listening sessions for annexation. We've had a series of events, most of them last fall and early winter. And then most of you know that we have a staff level diversity, equity, and inclusion advisory team in commercial areas moving forward, and in a conversation with you to recap that equity so that it can resolve in the pipe and you can clean it up in the next quarter. And as we go forward, that focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, we're going to try to talk with you more about what our community focus will be. I'm trying to think about anything else I wanted to say about this goal. I'm not seeing anything. Sure.
On the library strategic plan, I know they do that every 5 years, I think.
Yes, that's
Is this
right.
their kind of regular cycle?
Yes, that's right. Part of the reason that I added a couple of bullets in look ahead that relate to the library and this innovation promotion idea is that in the departmental work plans, there are ideas that you've either asked of us or that will be evolving through that library strategic plan process, which you might not ordinarily see until the adoption of the plan. But the library is going to be doing a lot of work through its strategic plan and also in rethinking spaces and putting an Internet of Things in place. So they have some exciting ideas that I'm hoping you'll see more of. Sometimes you only see the library and the library board once a year, but really a lot of what they're doing aligns with the goal that you've set in terms of being inclusive in the way we're going to work in the future. And your final goal has to do with the concept of walkable in our strategic plan. And that has everything to do with our ADA transition plan to a whole host of transportation plans. In the last quarter, we already celebrated last quarter that we exceeded the standard on the 6-year CIP right as soon as you set the goal with the adopted budget. The Transportation Safety Action Plan was achieved last quarter, and we have a series of grants that we applied for to support safe routes to school and the Fanno Creek Trail signage project. And so those projects are going to be getting underway in the quarter ahead. And Safe Routes to Schools will be making progress, we're hoping, in the upcoming quarter through that grant with all our Title I schools. So that's a short report about where we've been this quarter. One of the things that I put in your packet was an example of one of the departmental work plans, and I just realized that as you saw in the last presentation, it doesn't lend itself very well to a PowerPoint slide, but you'll see this is, I gave you an example of the work plan as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion because it's got some alignment with the council goal, but it also gives you a lot more detail in as it relates to the effort generally in terms of, or how do I say this? It gives you a lot more detail about what the project is, what its aim is, who will be involved and manage the project, and what our key indicators of success are. So next time you see a presentation, I'm going to be trying to give you a broader look at the department work plans with the council goals aligned with them. And that's all I've got for an update for you this quarter, and I'd welcome your questions if you have
questions, comments. Councilor Newton?
This is down in the weeds, but I'm looking really quickly at this DEI work plan, and it sounds to me like what you were saying is that ultimately it will align with the council goals and everything. You know, everything will kind of fit in the work plan. So will that be identified somehow, or it'll just become obvious? The reason I'm asking is, and I didn't read the whole thing, but I know as a council we've talked a little bit about a key thing for us being, does everybody in our community have access to the services they need, no matter who they are, what their state is? And so I think that's something that would be important to be reflected in a DEI because that's kind of the council level, but it may be, I haven't read it, it may be in the terms that are used. But I think, you know, access to services if they're disabled or, you know, there's some issue, we don't want anybody to feel like they can't get, there's a language barrier or something, we don't want anybody to feel like they can't get the services that they need. So as we move through these work plans, I'm assuming we could ask questions or kind of ferret out where we're feeling like maybe something needs to be more specific related to a goal or a council issue. It would just be one of the outcomes or one of the...
Yes. We're not going to be an approver of the work plans.
Right.
So probably.
No, mostly I wanted you to be informed that we're putting together work plans for the first time and working with them, but the goal, the idea of the work plans is for them to align with the council goal, and I mean, in some ways one informs the they inform each other both ways. I think that the council goals signal to us the intent of what you want to see achieved. In this case, it's that everyone feels like they can access the services.
It's just reflected in the work plan, not necessarily separately called out, but they'll be reflective and you'll be able to go, oh, okay, in this section here or this outcome here, we
Yes.
could say to somebody, this meets council goal 3 or whatever.
Yes,
Yeah.
and actually this, the second page of the of this work plan,
okay.
where it says alignment, this is why I actually left it off of the copy I made too, but the second plan, at the moment our work plans are carrying over into a second page. Our goal originally was to have a template
Right.
so that you could flip through. There are about 60 of them actually. There's probably more than there should be, but we were inventorying our work. On the second page, that category called alignment has a list of the ways that this effort intersects with
Yeah.
the strategic plan, with council goals, and so on.
So then that's easy to see.
And the DEI effort was going to have, there are multiple elements to this work plan. You're looking at one that focuses internally, but the point about counter audits, for example, to make our services, to determine how accessible our services are and to figure out how to improve them, and the implementation of the ADA transition plan are also each work plan
Right.
items.
Yeah.
So, and that might be a level of detail that you all tell me that you're not interested in a future report, but for now I wanted you to know the work plans were underway and we're trying to align
I
them.
think it's helpful to know.
Yeah, I think it is helpful just to know. We may not look in great detail in the future because we'll know how they work, but it's helpful to know how they're going to come out. So.
Well, and it may be the kind of thing that at some point when one of us is like, well, I'd like to know, like, what are the weeds on whatever X topic is, then that would be a place to go to
That would be the goal.
pretty quickly be able to answer it. Counselor Anderson, you had your mic on, sorry.
Very complete. I like this format. I think, you know, if you do it every quarter, we don't have to go really deep in the weeds. So the first one, we were kind of getting used to the format, and now I love it.
I think it shows, you know, I always look at it and I'm amazed at how much we can accomplish in a quarter. So it's helpful to have it all outlined. There was a couple of goals and I went, wow, you know, that's a lot. So it's helpful to be reminded.
Counselor Lube or Council President Goodhouse, any comments or questions?
None for me.
All right.
I don't have any questions.
All right, we will move on to non-agenda items. The first one, it looks like the city attorney is going to present, and this is for discussion, right?
Yes, this is
Okay.
for discussion. Council, this is the second item before you tonight related to the COVID-19 emergency. The first item was city-focused and what the city is doing. This item is community-focused, a proposal of what the city can do for the community. So we're certainly all familiar with the effects that the emergency is having on small businesses, especially with employers reducing hours, canceling shifts, or closing altogether. Patronage to the region's small businesses is decreasing substantially. One of the estimated impacts of that is the inability of Oregon's working families to pay rent. You may have heard in the news today that Multnomah County and the City of Portland enacted a moratorium on evictions, residential evictions, for those tenants who have been impacted by COVID-19 directly. The community development staff here at Tigard expressed a similar expressed an interest in a similar action. So we have consulted with Portland. City of Eugene is also looking at this, discussed with their council with an E, the city attorneys. The consensus was that it's debatable as to whether cities are preempted under Oregon landlord-tenant law from taking such an action. The belief is that this might be reserved for a statewide action. Also today, as this is evolving day by day, the Chief Justice of the Oregon Supreme Court issued an order basically prioritizing what cases Oregon courts are going to hear. The effort was to try to limit the number of people in Oregon's courts, but the effect was to actually stall these eviction cases because one of the types of cases that she requested be temporarily suspended were FED cases, forcible entry and detainer eviction cases. So even though the intent was not a Tenant Protection Act, If a landlord can no longer take a tenant to court for an eviction, the effect is the same. So what this resolution before you does is encourages both the governor and the Oregon Legislative Assembly to enact a temporary moratorium on evictions statewide. The belief is that this is not only a City of Tigard or City of Portland, Multnomah County issue, but this is a statewide issue. It's a statewide emergency. The Oregon Legislative Assembly appears that they are going to come together for a special session to discuss a response, a statewide response to the COVID-19 emergency. So if council wishes, the proposed resolution before you tonight would urge the state legislators and governor to adopt a temporary statewide moratorium on evictions for households impacted by the COVID-19 emergency. And I can answer any questions.
I would just add that, you know, even under normal times, FEDs and just the eviction process overall doesn't happen that fast. Just in general, having been through the prosecution side of that a few times in 20 years. But it sounds like it will be even slower now.
Much
or
slower,
non-existent,
yes.
actually.
Yes, temporarily non-existent.
Okay. So I'm guessing we'll have Councilor Newton.
Question really quick, sorry. So first of all, I'm very concerned about this. But one thing I have heard as well, I was wondering if the cities are the appropriate body. Is there a role for the League of Oregon Cities in this? And I heard some discussion today, in fact, Mayor Wheeler talked about it, the impact on landlords who, if their tenants can't pay, then they're in danger of losing their building. So I'm very concerned about, you know, tenants being evicted when they don't have any way to pay their rent, but I'm wondering about that issue as well. So I guess, you know, if this is the right way to go, I'm supportive, but I wonder if there's a more coordinated way we could, as cities in the state, address it through the League of Oregon Cities, or, you know, working to look at the whole spectrum of the issue as well. Or are there other things being done where there are cases that, you know, if everybody's affected, as a lot of people are going to be, and a landlord can't, then they lose their building. Then what happens? You know, so I have concerns about that as well, because then what happens to those tenants? So that would be my concern.
Judicial and non-judicial foreclosures happen even slower than evictions happen, but that's. Is there a more coordinated effort that might be more practical? Yeah, hold on one second. More practical rather than each city taking individual action. I don't know. That's just a question. Well, and this doesn't have us taking individual action. It urges the state to take action, right? Council President Goodhouse?
I was going to say that might fall into SBA loans for the businesses. If someone's considered a landlord, they may fall into the business category. And there's options that are being looked at for those areas as well.
And I'm not aware of any discussions that have been from the business perspective a protection for landlords. It doesn't mean that that's not part of the discussion, but I haven't heard it.
And am I correct that Multnomah County as a county also took action on this today?
Yes, Multnomah County and the City of Portland jointly. Eugene had talked about doing it, but I haven't seen anything or heard any updates.
And theirs was not like a, hey, we're asking the legislature to act. They actually took action, and what your report out indicated that it's questionable whether that action is preempted or not.
They actually did declare a moratorium themselves, but it's obviously this has never been tested in a court case before, so it is questionable whether this overall state regulations of landlord-tenant regulations preempt cities.
Okay. Councilor Anderson, anything?
Well, I just don't know the mechanics of how they're going to document it, because obviously this affects service industry most, probably, but some people might take advantage of that, and then they would have to prove that they're in the service industry or some kind of industry that was harmed by the virus. So
And it's my understanding that in Multnomah County / Portland, they do require some evidence of hardship. So some proof that the person was temporarily laid off or furloughed. There is some documentation required, but yeah, in terms of specific and what it would look like at the state level, that's open to discussion also.
Sure. Councillor Lube?
Yes, you know, this is something where I know there's a lot of people who are very concerned about it. More and more people are getting laid off, and housing is a difficult problem. And it's harder to get people back into housing than it is just to keep them in. And I think it's really important for us to ask our legislative leaders at the state level to go ahead and make a policy to figure out how to manage this on a statewide level, because I think to piecemeal around the state is going to get hard and confusing depending upon what city or what county you're in. So I'm incredibly supportive of us passing this resolution to encourage them to figure something out.
And then Youth Councillor Turley also expressed her support for, as she called it, the eviction resolution. So I'll just share that she was supportive of the concept as well. So is this something that we're interested in encouraging the legislature in the form of passing this resolution?
I concur. I mean, I think it may be that what the state decides, you know, we can't anticipate, but asking them to take some sort of action, I think most importantly raises the issue. We can have the discussion about all the issues, and I think we need to do something fairly quickly because there are a lot of families at risk.
I move to approve resolution number 20-15.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution 20-15, a resolution calling on Oregon Governor Kate Brown and the Oregon Legislative Assembly to enact a temporary moratorium on evictions statewide.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, resolution number 20-15 is adopted unanimously. And City Manager Wine, I would ask staff to, I think this needs to be communicated to the public and to state elected officials, and then probably also in press release tomorrow. I don't know what people think about that.
Will do.
Does that seem appropriate? And then obviously pushed on social media. But I think we need to create the discussion and the tension for change, and I think that's part of what Portland's action does. And if we help push, then I think that's positive. Okay, we'll move on to the next non-agenda item, which is actually, I'm going to call it kind of two items. Excuse me. I am suggesting that we support the Washington County Public Safety Levy and the Washington County Cooperative Library Services Levy, and I have copies of draft resolutions of support. I'll take one and then pass them on.
Mr. Mayor, I also realize the City Recorder provided these in the packet. So
Oh,
even though I gave you copies, but you have them also.
Gotcha. So you might have duplicates. So I'm bringing this forward because it's something that the council can take action on, but the city itself can't have an official position on. So let's take the public safety one first. Is this something people want to discuss further, or is everybody in general support that we would support the Washington County Public Safety Levy with a resolution? Everybody on the phone okay with that too? And then if so,
I'm in support.
somebody make a motion. And this will be
Resolution number 20-16.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution 20-16, a resolution supporting the Washington County Public Safety Levy, ballot measure 34-296.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, resolution number 20-16 passes unanimously. Second resolution is in support of the Washington County Cooperative Library Services Local Option Levy, ballot measure 34-297.
I move to approve resolution number 2017.
Second.
Moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution 20-17, a resolution supporting the renewal of the Washington County Cooperative Library Services Local Option Levy, ballot measure 34-297.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, resolution number 20-17 is adopted unanimously. City Manager, next item on the agenda is to discuss meetings for the next month and format.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you have no doubt experienced over the last week or so, a lot has been changing, and we've had a good deal of uncertainty on many fronts, including the orders that we have to not have gatherings of 10 people or more, and many of our services have changed, and as we were noting earlier, our public outreach canceled. So I would imagine that you're wondering what's going to happen with council meetings going forward, and I thought you would have a chance tonight, since you're all together, to talk about that. We've taken a look at the tentative agendas over the next month, and we're able to either move or postpone or change, as you noticed with your changed agenda tonight, the matters that are before you, so that for upcoming council meetings, we believe that we're able to move and reschedule items so that you would be able to cancel the meeting of March 24th. There's one item left on April 7th that is an executive session that you could have by phone. If you know, if we could have that meeting, it would be just a single item, and it would be a phone executive session. And the public.
Would that also be fewer than 10 people if it were conducted in person?
For an executive session?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It would be the 5 counselors and a staff person and the folks you see in the room. So.
Okay.
I should have also mentioned, related to the meeting on the 24th originally, we had noticed a public hearing for that night, and we're able to post and reschedule that for a date certain. So we'd be proposing that we move that to the April 21st, the date of April 21st. And that means that your next 3 meetings, which would be March 24th, April 7th, April 14th, almost every item except for the single item on March 7th could be moved, and those meetings could be either significantly abbreviated or canceled. And then the next meeting you would have would be on April 21st. So it's kind of in line with the that you made tonight, and also the suspension of our city services, which is mostly planned for going through the end of April. So those are some ideas about the ways you might modify your meetings as we look ahead a month. And I know that we don't know the duration of this situation that we're in, but we're trying to provide ways for you to not create gathering places for people.
So council discussion.
Well, I think that it's wise that we consolidate these to the 21st, and if anything pressing pops up, we're in communication via email.
What do you think about the April 7th executive session?
There's one item on it?
There's one item, yes. I'm checking with the sponsor of that item to see if it's absolutely necessary. I believe for timing reasons, it's important. It'll be important for you to meet then.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I just think it will be, if it's smaller than 10 people, and we could use, I mean, if this building is locked down for spacing reasons, could we meet in this room?
Yes.
Okay, well, that seems like, I mean, we could maintain smaller or fewer, 10 or fewer people. We maintain 6-foot distances. I would think we could meet here on April 7th. I just think the phone thing is just immensely harder, especially for
I understand.
an executive session item to try to work through.
I agree with that as well.
I concur. I also think, I mean, I hope, you know, by April 21st, everything's all back to normal, but I think it would be interesting to see what our options are, because I heard another discussion today about public hearings and how they may or may not be conducted. So ideally, we would have a standard public hearing, but it would be good to know, not tonight, but down the road, if we have other options, if we've got some business we need to conduct and we're still under some sort of limited options.
So I can comment on that briefly. The discussions that I've had with staff basically center on, it depends on how far down the road we're looking at this, how creative we have to be. The general consensus on legal advice now is that it's easier to cancel the meeting than it is to try to have it telephonically, especially because it is so difficult to make sure that we have an option for the public to participate. So one of the biggest challenges is that we have to, under state law, we have to provide a means to allow somebody to participate by phone. So if somebody doesn't have a phone, internet service, computer at their house, we have to provide one at the city. So by providing one at the city, we potentially create the gathering point that we're trying to avoid. So public hearings are very difficult, and the consensus is if you can push it out, don't do it, or do that. If we get down the road and we're still in this situation 6 weeks later, then I think we need to look more creatively at, can we do, for example, written-only testimony at a land use hearing. I know Eugene was talking about doing that in front of a hearings officer's case. Can we, by extending the record, be able to adapt to making sure that anybody who came and wasn't prepared with written testimony still has adequate time to submit it. So there are more creative options that we'll look at in the future, but for right now, the guidance is it's easier to cancel.
The mayors are asking the governor to suspend timelines in land use.
And that would be,
hasn't happened yet, but that's been asked.
That would be helpful. We've requested that at least one applicant extend the 120 days for our situation, because we'll run past it.
All right, other comments on meetings? Councilor Lube, you okay with the plan?
Yes, I'm supportive of us pushing things off as necessary in order to comply with keeping our distance.
Okay. City Manager Wine, do you have an administrative report?
No report tonight.
All right, is there a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.